My name is Jay, and this is my 2015 Mercedes S550. This car has just under 150,000 miles, which is about the time that I start becoming a mechanic and stop going to the dealership. So this car it's been very good for me so far. I've only had to replace, in the 70,000 miles I've owned it, only have had to replace a cooling hose that was between the engine and the firewall. I had that done at the dealership, as well as the radar sensor, the forward-facing radar sensor. This car has never let me down. It's never left me on the side of the road. Never broken down once. But now my air conditioning doesn't work, and it's going to be a big problem. So let's dive into that. So the first sign I had that there was issue with the air conditioning was the air from the vents started to get a little warmer than normal. I noticed that one day. It was particularly hot, so I didn't know if something happened, something broke, or it's just because of the temperature, but I knew something was wrong. The following day, it got even worse, and I started to hear some noises coming from inside or behind the vents in the dash. It sounded like air circulation through piping noises. I thought that was bad. Figured that was a sign of something was being broken. So what I did first is I purchased a code and module reader. I found a cheap one on Amazon that had good reviews. I'll show that later. And I wanted to check to see if there were any electrical faults showing up in the air conditioning system. When I ran the faults, there was only one for a vent actuator, and the date stamp was from a while ago, so that wasn't it. In the module, though, I could see that the compressor wasn't turning on, and a little bit of research showed me that was very likely to do with the pressure being low in the system, so all this together, I figured I had a leak. So I went through and I checked out the system. I noticed right here there's some kind of grease on the high pressure, the low pressure line here, but I think it's just some oil that came off in front here and kind of worked itself up. But I immediately noticed that, and then when I looked at the condenser here, it was pretty pitted. The condenser is basically in the radiator pack. It's the front radiator. It's pretty thin, and it's just bombarded by rocks, specifically like under here. It's just destroyed by rocks. So I figured this is probably my culprit. I looked online. I noticed the part was only $100 on FCP Euro, so I just bought it, and with the intent of putting it in, even if that wasn't the case. So I continued taking apart the front end to do that. You have to take off. I went too far over here. I put it back, but you have to take off this structure up top here. It comes down. This is where that radar sensor goes. And then you have to take off the front bumper. It actually wasn't that hard. Front bumper came off pretty easy, probably about an hour of work. So then I purchased a sniffer, and I sniffed around. I couldn't find any leaks at all, and I thought that was strange. I decided to add a little bit of refrigerant to get the pressure back up, so if any leaks were coming out that required the pressure, I would be able to find them. So I did that. I brought all the pressures back up. The system held it. The AC kicked back on. I was at like 45 degrees in there, which was great. I used my sniffer, nothing. And then I brought the sniffer inside. I used it in there, nothing. So I was a little perplexed. I actually thought maybe I fixed it. So I was pretty happy. But the following day, I tried again. I came out. I used the sniffer on the outside, nothing. I started the car, brought the AC up, noticed that the temperature wasn't, it was a lot higher than 45 degrees. So meaning that there still was a leak. And then I happened to have my sniffer by the door, and the door of the cabin, and it started going off. I brought it inside the cabin, it was going like crazy. So I have a leak inside the cabin, which from my understanding is the evaporator, which is behind the dashboard. Probably the hardest and most labor intensive part to fix in this entire car, you know, minus a full engine removal, I think, based on it, what everyone has said. So the labor, from the research I've done, is about $3,000. So we're definitely gonna do that on our own. So I have the tools now to do it. I have no AC experience, but there's great resources online. You know, I intend to save $3,000 to keep this car on the road, not have to get rid of it by doing this repair myself. And you know, I'd like to take you through it. All right, so before I rip into the dash, I'm going to do 3 tests. First, right now, I'm going to use this sniffer in the cabin one more time. After that, I'm going to use a UV light on the system as it stands right now in case there's any dye already in the system. And third, I'm going to add dye to the system, and if there's none there already, and see if I can find any leaks that are obvious. So for the sniffer, I'm going to try this right now. This is the one I purchased on Amazon. When you start it up, it takes 30 seconds to start up, makes a beeping, does some sniffing. I noticed on startup it has this AU here, and I'm not sure what that means. I couldn't find it in the documentation. People on the comment section were complaining about that, but I realized that if you hold the reset there, it goes away. It starts on sensitivity low for me, but I've been putting it to medium. So this cabin has been sealed up for about 20 hours now. I haven't run the car at all. If there's a leak inside, it's probably gonna pick it up. Just briefly, I'll show you me around the engine bay here. So I'm not getting any readings around the engine bay. Nothing around here at all. I've done this a couple times. But when I go into the cabin, I suspect that I'm going to get some. So I'll crack open the door here. Right away, I put the sound off, but right away it's going off. I'm gonna pull it out, I'm gonna shut the door again. Probably take a few seconds to come back down, as you see. Reset the peak. I'll try it again. So again, nothing over on the engine bay area. Coming over to the cabin. It's going off right away. So I think I have a leak. Bummer. Okay, it's been a few days now. I've got a few parts and tools in the mail. This is a UV flashlight I got to see if there's any dye in the system currently. Also picked up some dye to add to the system if I don't see anything. And this is a dye dispenser. I'm gonna hook that up and put some in the system. So first off, I'm gonna check to see if, with the UV flashlight, if there's any dye that has been placed in the system previously, and see if I can see any leaks. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut the lights off. All right, so here's an example of what it could look like. That lights up pretty good. Starting over here, kind of checking the lines. I don't see anything jumping out at me. Looks like some of this tape lights up green. I don't don't see anything on this side. Maybe a little bit around the fitting here. Looks kind of like corrosion, but I'll check that again with the lights on. This greasy area here is not lighting up. So that's either not refrigerant or not dyed refrigerant. Checking the condenser. I don't see anything on the front. I don't see anything out back either. There's a fitting on the bottom here. Looks like a little corrosion's lighting up, so maybe there's a leak there, but otherwise, I don't really see anything. I will be replacing this anyways, so that's another reason. All right, I'm gonna head into the car and do the same thing. So another day has gone by. Just wanted to talk through some of the next steps. So it's clear there's a leak in the system and it's in the cabin. It seems like from the schematics I've looked at that it is the evaporator or components of the evaporator, and that's directly behind the dashboard. I looked up and it seems like dashboard removal labor is about $2,000 to $3,000. And it's all really labor. The skill is just kind of knowing where everything is, and I do have a workshop manual I can look at if I get stuck. So I'm gonna take it on myself, like I talked about at the beginning of the video. I purchased a condenser, so I'm gonna replace that as well because this one's pretty beat up. So I have to evacuate all the gas from the system. And then, so I'll take the dashboard out before I do that. But the next couple videos, the first one, it will be me taking apart the dashboard and making the repair, putting it back together. And the end video will kind of be buttoning this all back up, including a bumper. And I have a new ABS bumper that I purchased. It's S63 kind of like mashup, custom that they make, one of the Chinese ones. Looks pretty good. I purchased it because my original bumper is pretty pitted with rock chips at 150,000 miles, and I don't drive slow, so it's pretty pitted. And the quote to get it repaired was $1,600. So repair of the chips and repainted was $1,600. So I bought the ABS bumper. I bought some color match paint and like a clear